what it seems. This whole thing is orchestrated. It's like a little dance. Well, Newt Gingrich was on with my buddy Charlie Kirk earlier here on Real America's Voice. And this is what he said about the orchestration of this latest arrest of President Trump.
But I am told by a reliable source that Friday evening, somebody from Washington called the district attorney in Atlanta and said, you have to indict on Monday. We have to cover up all of the mistakes we just made with Weiss. And she said, apparently, my jurors aren't coming back till Tuesday. And they said, you didn't hear me. You have to indict on Monday. And she said, well, they're not going to get here before noon. They said, it doesn't matter. She said, this means it's going to be 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night. They said, it doesn't matter. We need the news media shifting off of Weiss.
Who made that phone call?
We don't know.
We have to find out. And that's what Jim Jordan is trying to get to the bottom of. The congressional Republican who's leading the Judiciary Committee has sent a letter to Fani Willis. I'll read part of this letter just to show you how serious that he really is. It says, in part, there are questions about whether and how your office coordinated with the DOJ, Special Counsel Jack Smith, during the course of this investigation. News outlets have reported that your office and Mr. Smith interviewed many of the same witnesses and reviewed much of the same evidence in reaching your decision to indict President Trump. House Judiciary is now investigating. So as I said, we're awaiting President Trump to show up. I want to get an update from outside Fulton County Jail. My man, Ben Berkwam, who literally travels all over the place covering chaos. And let's face it, this is part of the chaos that's been ensued across America, arresting a former president like this. Ben Berkwam, welcome to the program. What are you seeing out there, my friend?
Well, Grant, I've been here all day. Team's been down here all day. We've been mostly on the other side, on the Rice Road entrance. Now we're on the main entrance side. We're anticipating President Trump coming down this way. In fact, you can see the dump trucks lined up here. That's for potential terror attacks or people that have ill will. The other side, you see the sheriff van bus there as well, and then another dump truck far away. So it looks like he's going to be entering from the end of that street, coming down here, and then entering the jail. The jail is just off to my right. But all day long, it's been a party in support of President Trump on the other side. There are hundreds of people over there. They've been out here in the heat. It's over 90 degrees, 100% humidity, and they've been out here in support of President Trump. And as you mentioned, they see this as only going to help him. It's only going to bolster him. And you see, what's going on in the polls. Every time they have a new indictment, President Trump goes up in the polls. DeSantis goes down. That sham of a debate last night. It's just, it's just more of the same. But we anticipate President Trump arriving any second.
All right. So I know you went out and you shot some sound bites with some of the supporters. Let's roll those.
This attack, clearly political persecution. But do you think it's going to backfire? Do you think it's going to help President Trump or hurt him?
Yes, he's going to be reelected in 2024, hands down.
No doubt.
The American people are aware of what's going on in this country, and we're here to fight.
I know that God's on our side, so anything they do actually works in his favor. They can't do anything to hurt him. Anything that they do is going to sink him deeper in the quicksand, and yeah, everyone's going to love Trump more and more.
I had my group of Latinos. They are not believe much in the Trump in the 2016. Today, everybody loved this guy because he represents why we escape. What happened in our countries.
It's going to help him. I think he's going to win the election.
Well, Ben, that seems to be the overwhelming consensus. You're going to hang there for a little bit. Will you hang around for me to give us the update when President Trump arrives?
Absolutely.
All right. Ben
Yes, sir.
Berkwam,
Happy to
thank you.
do it.
Thank you so much, my man. All right, we've got live pictures from the airport where Trump Force One has landed. You can see there. And it's always a sight when you see President Trump's plane land. Normally I would say, oh, what a sad day in American history. And we're used to saying that over and over again. I'm not saying that anymore. Now, this is a day in American history where, once again, the fight gets amped up even more than ever before. So, we had this debate last night. One of the most important questions that was asked of these candidates, GOP candidates, would you pardon President Trump if elected? I don't think we're going to have to get to that point. I don't think he's going to be convicted of any of these charges. But still, it's an important question to see where they stand in support of President Trump. Watch this.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Now, the reason why I wanted you to watch that very carefully is because Ron DeSantis had to look around to see what he was going to do. Well, Vivek Ramaswamy raised his hand right away, and he raised it high. Ron DeSantis raises it like this, maybe. Remember that moment, folks. Remember it. This is Vivek Ramaswamy with another guy who I don't think raised his hand, Mike Pence. This was the night of the disappointments, by the way. Mike Pence is another one of those disappointments. Ron DeSantis is. Vivek did a good job. Watch this.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me in making a commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage who had the courage to actually say it. That is how we move our nation forward.
I don't know
and
why
turn the
you
page
assume
forward.
that
That's
Donald
exactly
Trump
right.
will be convicted of these crimes.
You should be able to make a commitment. The same justice system that was this corrupt.
Here's the difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a professional politician. That's the difference. You can answer a question.
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana. It usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted.
There's no contrition on behalf of President Trump, Mike Pence. The only contrition that needs to be shown is from that man who was a great vice president up until January 6th. And that's when he let it all go, and that's when his political career ended, quite frankly. Vivek Ramaswamy, again, did a great job. I want to thank our friends at Fox News for being so kind and allowing us to air 3 minutes of audio for an entire hour, keeping the message of what GOP candidates were saying from the rest of the country. Thank you, Fox News, for that. I know I'm supposed to say that. Those are the rules. This is why you watch this network and not that network, because they're trying to control everything. We're not going to let it happen here. Folks, I want to bring in now a great friend of this program, Trump attorney and author of the book, Stealing Your Vote. Christina Bobb is back with us. Christina, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Grant.
Christina, am I crazy to say I'm not doing it? I'm not doing another sad day in American history. I'm using this day as a battle cry.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I loved your opening monologue. I thought it was fantastic. This is a day where we stand up and fight. We push back and we say no more. A mugshot coming out shortly, I think, as you said, is going to be the one thing the MAGA movement lacked was a mugshot to kind of round out this whole government persecution message. So, yeah, I think Americans, not just conservatives, but Americans are saying, nope, this has gone way too far and we're not going to stand for it.
All right, so President Trump is getting off of the plane now. I think we've got some videos as we talk about this, or maybe he just came down the steps. Either way, Christina, so as we see what's going to unfold today, what do you expect to happen? Does he go in? Do they put him in handcuffs? Has these deals been worked out? Does he have to sit in a holding tank? What's going to happen?
Well, it should be very civil and very professional. I don't expect him to be handcuffed. I can't imagine that the Secret Service would allow anybody to put President Trump in handcuffs. But that all was worked out among the attorneys. And, you know, I don't know exactly what Fulton County is going to do. The fact that they're taking mugshots, I think, is absolutely bizarre. But I don't expect this to be terribly dramatic. He'll go in, he'll get booked to do if they work it out with the Secret Service, fingerprinted again. And then that'll really be it. He'll be done.
I hate to even ask this question. Is he getting used to this? I mean, has it become old hat? I mean, he was so calm last night on with Tucker Carlson.
He really is that resolved. And, you know, I can't say this doesn't faze him, but he certainly doesn't give any appearance that it does. He is more resolved than ever. Every time I talk to him, he's like, no, we're going to win. We got to take this country back. We got to take this country back. And it just confirms to him that he's doing the right thing for this nation. And it should confirm to every American that he's doing the right thing for this nation. He has the means, the resources to avoid all of this. He doesn't need to do this. He is doing it because he knows the trajectory of our nation is wrong, and he's got to set it right. So he really is doing this for the nation, and I think the Democrats are just proving his point. And they're proving his point when he says, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. The fact that they now have gone off after 18 of his colleagues and staff members and attorneys and GOP political operatives, chairman of the GOP party, the fact that they're going after like regular Americans, and the same thing has happened in Michigan, and we're seeing it around the country, they're coming after us, and he's trying to stop them.
You know, Christina, how do I say this? I do fairly well in media. I feel like I do fairly well, okay? I get pretty much what I want, when I want it. I have all of what I need and most of what I want. That's success in life. But if I was to be arrested by one of these rogue prosecutors for supporting President Trump, whatever, heck, they may come and say, hey, you were on the big screen in the Georgia rally. You added to all of this. Who knows? They could make up anything. Yeah. It would break me financially.
Yeah.
It would break me financially. President Trump's a billionaire. Roger Stone's not a billionaire. Rudy Giuliani's not a billionaire. These are wealthy guys, but they're trying to break these people. And the list of those who were on these mugshots, many I didn't even know. And you can see President Trump coming down the steps here. But it would break me, and I think that's what they want to do, Christina.
That's what they want to do, and they want to scare anybody, not just out of supporting Donald Trump, but going against the political powers that be. They don't want any political dissent, and they're trying to scare people out of voicing their opinions and voicing any type of political dissent. And just to point out, one of the people that was indicted was Bob Chile, one of the attorneys, who still has active and open litigation surrounding the 2020 election. And just a few months ago, he won at the Georgia Supreme Court with the Supreme Court order, your team is allowed to see the ballots. The ballots have been preserved because there's ongoing litigation. And he just won, and a couple months later, they indict him. So it just goes to show they're targeting political opponents. They do not want any political dissent, and they want to scare anybody from trying to oppose them.
It is unbelievable to me, the lengths they will go. And, you know, yesterday on this program, my monologue was about the threats that President Trump faced, my fear that he could be killed, and then lo and behold, the first question out of Tucker's mouth basically was, are you worried about being killed? And I had not done, I thought long and hard before doing that monologue about the possibility of him being assassinated, because they want to stop him with everything they have. And then Tucker asked the same question. There's got to be a feeling that the security has to be amped up right now, Christina.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I also, in an odd way, think it's very encouraging that everybody's kind of wondering that, because what it means is their tactics aren't working. You know, they tried to take him out with smear campaigns. They tried to take him out with civil litigation. They tried to take him out with, people lying about him. Then they tried to take him out with just indictments. And then now they're trying to take him out with ballot questions. And nothing they're doing is working. And that's why people are going, man, are they going to have to kill him? And I do think he's got very good security. I'm genuinely not worried about his safety, but it does mean that the left is, not just the left, the establishment, whoever these people are, they're losing, and they're not being successful at their attempts at stopping him.
Yeah. Well, I know President Trump has great security. He's also got a great legal team that you're part of. Christina, Bob, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Grant.
All right, good seeing you. All right, folks, we're going to continue our coverage of this. Is Joe Biden compromised by China? President Trump weighed in on that with his interview with Tucker Carlson last night. We'll talk about all of that. And then a real threat by China. Some threats we face. That's next. Welcome back, everyone. So we are waiting for President Trump to make his arrival at the Fulton County Jail. His motorcade is underneath those trees someplace, but President Trump is on his way there. Now, it's amazing to me that we are waiting for President Trump to be arrested by Fulton County prosecutors, when in my mind, it should be Joe Biden that is arrested, specifically for being in bed with every foreign enemy of the United States, including China. This is President Trump last night on Tucker.
I actually believe he's compromised because China knows so much about him. They know where the money comes from. They know where it is, who paid it, and they probably paid it. Well, they do pay Penn, and he gets $1 million. I think he takes $999,000 because, keeps it a little bit under $1 million, like by $1. But he, in many ways, is a Manchurian candidate. We have a Manchurian candidate, and he's afraid to tell Russia to get out of Cuba.
What he's saying is China pays the University of Pennsylvania, and the University of Pennsylvania pays Joe Biden a big salary. All of it is a shell game. Now, China poses other threats as well, and we will keep an eye on what's happening with President Trump. But China poses some other major threats as well. President Trump was the only one talking about this last night. On the debate stage, they talked about China a little bit. I would have liked to have seen them do this more, but President Trump raised some issues nobody's talking about, like the idea of China going into Cuba, which we know they're doing right now, to build military bases not far from America. Listen.
China's building military installations in Cuba. The Cuban population of Miami is not too happy because they're never going to be able to go back. And you don't even hear about it. And the worst culprit is the press, the media, because normally, when I first heard that China's building installations in Cuba, and installations means military installations, okay, they said just some communication. They did that on the islands with Japan. They took the island, they started this massive construction. And they told everybody, including the Japanese have to be very careful. They told everybody that this is a housing development. They're going to build a housing development. And I said, how come the runway is 20,000 feet long,
Yeah, as the president said, a private jet needs 4,000 feet. A C-5 transport plane needs 20,000 feet. You're not building a housing development with a 20,000-foot runway. That's for military planes. Well, joining me now from the new federal state of China is Nicole Sy to help me break down some of what President Trump was talking about, a new threat as well from within our own government. But Nicole, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I know this is a very historical day, and we're witnessing. And I want to remind all of your viewers that in December 18th, 2020, President Trump signed a very important law to stop the CCP's infiltration and economic warfare against the U.S., and that is called Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act. And that requires the CCP-related companies or companies that has ties with the People's Liberation Army to disclose to the SEC about whether the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board can go to China and provide oversight, due diligence. And Trump is the first president that has taken some tough action against the CCP. Yeah. And now, today, we know that since he was no longer in the White House for so many years, and now, right now, over 100 million American people are actually holding unwittingly stocks that are either directly controlled by the CCP or have ties with the People's Liberation Army.
So not just any Americans, but these are specifically federal employees. Federal employees have access to 115-something mutual funds that are investing in companies that are specifically on the sanctions list that build military jets, build all kinds of sensitive things that could be used against the United States. And yet the federal government's allowed to be investing in federal employees in this. Marco Rubio talked about this on the Senate floor. Let me play that clip and then get you to respond.
Federal employee retirement money is being invested in companies that are undermining American national security, according to our own government. We're investing in those. Think about the irony. You're a member of the military, and your retirement money is being invested in companies that are building missiles designed to blow up the ship that you serve on.
Nicole, I mentioned the companies are building jet engines for fighter planes. Also, solar panels using Uyghur slave labor, literally slave labor in China. What do we do to stop this?
Well, guess who controlled the corporate voting decision for the TSP, the world's largest retirement saving fund of the federal government employees, which consists of more than 6.8 million people, and it's BlackRock. So BlackRock, Wall Street, controls whether the American people, and especially federal government agents, employees, whether their retirement funding will be invested into the CCP companies through 5,000 mutual fund. I mean, this is horrible because we are funding the demise of our own future, and that's the failed policy on the U.S. part for so many years. And Trump is the first president who's able to stood up to the CCP and stood up to the Wall Street.
You know, what amazes me, because when we invest in companies like that, even through a mutual fund, when you have federal employees literally investing in mutual funds that are investing in companies on the sanctions list, we are propping up a regime that literally wants us destroyed. The CCP in China wants to take over the world. They are slowly doing it. President Trump talked about the Panama Canal. This is something I learned last night watching Tucker Carlson. Frightening. Listen to President Trump on that.
We sold it under Jimmy Carter. We sold it to Panama for $1. The following day, they quadrupled the amount of money that ships had to pay to get across. They didn't lose one ship. And now they've made it much bigger, and now they've widened it. They've doubled it, right? They've more than doubled it. And it's one of the most profitable things. Any time it's just incredible, right? We gave it away for $1. China now controls it. They actually control the Panama Canal. They run it, they control it. And we shouldn't let that happen. And we can't let China be in Cuba. And they'll get out. If I'm president, they'll get out.
So, Nicole, China controls the Panama Canal. That is a major pathway for trade. If they wanted to shut down and do great economic damage to the United States, all they have to do is close the Panama Canal down.
Well, absolutely. You know what? Trump is the only person that is talking about this last night on the presidential debate. He's the only one who knows how to deal with the CCP. And I think that, now people are watching, momentarily he will surrender himself to the Fulton County Jail. This is so ironic.
Yeah, it really is. Nicole, I appreciate you coming on tonight, laying this out with us. The goal, of course, of the new federal state of China is to take down the CCP, and we do it by economically uncoupling from them. That's clear to me. Nicole, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, absolutely. We are watching, folks, to see where President Trump is when he shows up. We have crews on scene. There's your live picture of President Trump getting close, I guess. I'm going to risk it here. This is when a host has to decide what to do. I'm going to go to a break, and maybe we'll time it perfectly. When we come back, he'll be showing up at the jail. So with that, we'll take a quick break, and then we're back in a flash. Welcome back, everyone. We are awaiting President Trump's arrival at the Fulton County Jail. It's unbelievable, but he's going to have to check himself in to be arrested, ultimately mugshotted. And I told you that mugshot is going to be a symbol of political persecution for the rest of eternity. It will be a historic photo that will signify for all of us conservatives strength, freedom, liberty, and what it takes for someone to stand up against oppression and tyranny. That's the shot you're looking at, where our own Ben Bergquam is, where it appears the motorcade is getting closer and closer to the Fulton County Jail. I do believe that is his motorcade. And so we'll stay on this shot. We have another story to talk about, but this is more important because this right now, folks, is an exact shot of how far the left is willing to go. They couldn't break him financially. They couldn't impeach him. They couldn't imprison him. So now what? They try again. They've set up his terms of release, the conditions. I believe it's a setup job. They give him a $200,000 bail, which, by the way, for a president of the United States who's a billionaire, $200,000 is a legitimate, like, 20 cents for him. He's not a flight risk. As President Trump joked himself, what's he going to do? Fly into another country on Trump Force One and hide himself? He's the most recognizable person on earth. There he goes, as you see, straight into the Fulton County Jail. So we're probably not going to see him at all get out of the car, wave. I wish we would. Sometimes, you know, like we saw in other areas and other places where he can give a little statement and a wave and a thumbs up. So it looks like he's going to be going on into the Fulton County Jail. I'm going to ask the crew to keep me posted on if there's any shots of President Trump. We will, of course, come back to it. But again, what you're looking at right there, President Trump's motorcade, an absolute signal of just how devious and desperate the Democrats are to stop this man. All it says to me is this is the guy that must win, that has to win, and that will win. All right, I want to talk about another story. Talking about oppression, this is also Democrat oppression, okay? We had told you about this story a while back in Santa Clara County, California. The Calvary Chapel Church has been fined $1.2 million for violating the COVID lockdown rules. During COVID, they wanted to gather. They did it with 6 feet distancing. They did it all by what they believe to keep the parishioners safe. They get fined $1.2 million. It later comes out that the county was allegedly tracking them using their cell phone data to geofence parishioners to keep tabs on them. This was broken by a news reporter, an individual journalist, the story, David Swag. Let's roll that cut.
First, they started doing these stakeouts around the church. The second prong is they went into the church itself after a judge gave them a temporary restraining order, which gave them, it empowered them to actually go in. So they were monitoring small prayer groups. They also employed a really vast scheme of what we would call a digital sort of mobile surveillance, where they paid for data from a company called Safegraphs that had the cellular mobility data. And then they hired a professor at Stanford Law School to write up an analysis of the data.
So, folks, what has happened now is the church has sued Santa Clara County. They've also sued this company called Safegraph. Now, I will say Safegraph has come out and released a statement, and it reads this: Safegraph had no prior knowledge of and did not approve the use of this data. Using the data in this way is not authorized and against Safegraph's terms of service. The expert witness that used the Safegraph data on behalf of Santa Clara County did so against Safegraph's terms of service and in direct violation of the strict non-commercial research agreement under which the data was provided. Safegraph or not, I'm mostly concerned about the county. And I'm mostly concerned about the county taking this step to surveil parishioners, especially when you go down the realm of religious services and tracking pastors that way. So how will this suit go? We'll ask the people involved. Joining me now is the pastor of Calvary Chapel in San Jose. Mike McClure is with us, an attorney at Advocates for Faith and Freedom, the organization that filed the lawsuit on behalf of the church. Mariah Gondiero is with us. Pastor McClure, Mariah, great to have you both on the program. Pastor, let me start with you first. Why is this lawsuit so important to you and the parishioners in the church?
Well, first, thanks for having us on. It's important because people have privacy. You know, we're living in America. We're not living in a foreign country like a communist country. We should have the right to worship. You read the First Amendment, and they're not even asking permission. They're just tracking us, and it makes you think they're doing this all the time. And that's what these data centers are. And they're keeping tabs on everything we do, emails, phone calls. I mean, I think that that's what people are wondering. And that's what I think we want to find out. And hopefully this lawsuit will bring that out.
Pastor, how does the church survive a $1.2 million judgment against you? I mean, that's a lot of money for any church, for any organization.
Well, it was originally $4 million, and they keep lowering it. But I think that the bigger picture is kind of like what you're watching with what they're doing with Trump. They're going after anybody who's going to speak out in truth. And, you know, as a pastor, the biggest and most important thing to me is the gospel of Jesus Christ, that people would hear the truth in a place where they're not going to be hindered. And you're coming to church now, and you can't hear the truth of the gospel. You can't hear what's really going on in the world without being monitored or tracked. And so you're coming to church, and we're following you, we're tracking you, and then they want us to pay for these fees that I honestly don't get it. I mean, I think this is America. I woke up this morning and it seems to be, but it's time that people wake up and realize that we're losing our country, we're losing our freedom. And if America goes down, it's going to affect the rest of the world. And it really is the church's job to stand up for truth and freedom. And that's what I'm here to say. Look, I love America. I respect our laws. I'm thankful for them. But you have a county who doesn't think that these laws matter, and they're going to intimidate us with fines. And they won't even come down. Yeah. They've never come here to actually have a conversation. And it's really the most frustrating thing. You're trying to be a good citizen, you pay your taxes, and yet here they're monitoring you and telling you how to worship in your church.
They don't want to talk to you. You know, it's interesting. You brought up, it's very similar to what's happening with President Trump. Mariah, it really is, because if you dissent, they want to criminalize you. And if they can't criminalize you, then they'll try to financially break you. They want you to just fall in line no matter what. Look, religious freedom is fundamental to America. What's the success of this lawsuit ensuring that this never happens again? What happens if another county in New York does this, or another county in California does this?
I think that's the reason why we ultimately brought this lawsuit challenging the county's geofencing operation, is because we don't want this to happen to any other church, to any other individual, simply because they wouldn't bow down to the government. They wouldn't comply with the orders. That's all that this is about. It's about pride. The county is prideful because they were the epicenter of the lockdown orders. They don't want to be wrong. They want to show their residents that this is what happens when you disobey our orders. And what we're also seeing, and you kind of alluded to, Grant, is the weaponization of our judicial system. That's ultimately what we're seeing against President Donald Trump as well. They brought up these trumped up charges that is absolutely absurd. You know, RICO charges. You often see RICO charges for levied against gangs, cartels. You have to show coordinated criminal activity. And so this is what we're up against, and it's a very dangerous time for our country, because people do not have faith in our judicial system anymore. And that's what's scary about all this.
Did they ever get a warrant for this? I would think in order to track people, get cell phone data, even though it wasn't, I guess, identifiable. This is very similar to how 2,000 mules tracked down, the mules that were going around to the ballot drop boxes. Did they ever get a warrant for this?
No, they didn't. And I want to explain the difference there, because the Constitution is very nuanced here. When you're out in public on a street or outside of an election facility, you have the expectation that you can be surveilled by the government, right? I mean, there are people out there monitoring what is going on, especially the drop boxes. You don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy near an election drop box out on a public street. However, we're talking about a church here where you do have a reasonable expectation of privacy, whether you're in the nursery, an intimate prayer gathering, the sanctuary. That is much different than trying to surveil suspected criminals, which is when you often see these geofencing operations done.
So I would still think you don't have an expectation of privacy when you're in public when it comes to shooting someone with video. But inside my phone, the numbers inside my phone, I would most certainly think I have an expectation of privacy that what's in here is private. And if that's an identifier in my phone, it's in my pocket, I don't think anybody's going to be able to see that. I think that's a stark difference here when it comes to tracking your location. We have a right to move freely around the country without the government tracking us. Yes. Last word for you, Pastor McClure. What do you hope happens out of all of this? Is this for other churches to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
I think the hope is to wake up America and realize that we have a government who doesn't care about us, that the only one who cares about us is God. And what made America great is our founders understood the value of law right out of the Bible. 27 of these founders were pastors just like me. They fought for freedom. They died for our freedom. And yet we're willingly letting it go to these tyrants that think they know what's right, and they have no moral compass. And so I hope this wakes up America to the point where we turn back to God. The only hope I believe that we have for America is not the next election or the next president. It's going to be when we turn back to God. And if my people, the Bible says in 2 Chronicles 7:14, who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then God's going to heal our land. And I think that's what my message is. If America doesn't wake up, and the church's job is to hold the government accountable, pastors' job is to hold government officials accountable. And if we're not doing that, then just say goodbye to America.
Yeah, so true. For those that watch this program on a regular basis, they know I say all the time, I do believe we are under a satanic attack. And that advice right there, Pastor, is probably about the best advice we could give to this nation. We do that, we're going to be okay. I got lots of guests that come on here. God's watching over us. We're going to be okay in the end as long as we play our role and our part in all of it. And you guys certainly are. Thank you for putting up a fight against all of this, Pastor McClure, Mariah Gondiero. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of you. All right, folks, as we move on now tonight, moving to the next segment, there's an organization that still backs Obamacare, gun control, and extreme transgender policies that endanger our kids. They claim to be bipartisan, but last year, 95% of their donations went to Democrats. AARP doesn't represent the values of American seniors. Fortunately, there's a conservative alternative, AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, proudly champions Americans' right to free speech, religious liberty, and the Second Amendment. AMAC defends parents' rights to protect their children and is fighting to restore America's election integrity. With more than 2 million members nationwide, AMAC is pro-faith, pro-family, and pro-freedom. I'm proud to be an AMAC member, and I encourage you to join today. Let's send AARP a strong message that they don't represent conservative seniors. Join AMAC today at amac.us/Stinchfield. That's amac.us/Stinchfield, STINCHFIELD. Coming up after the break, is the American Medical Association supporting your tax dollars going to trans surgeries? We'll talk about that next. Well, folks, President Trump has arrived at the Fulton County Jail. He is there to be booked, arrested, I would assume fingerprinted. And of course, if he's just like all the other, quote, suspects, I can't even believe you have to call them that. They're not suspects in anything. If he's like any of the other political prisoners that turn themselves in to Fannie Willis's prosecution and DA's office, he will be mugshotted. I want to go out to Ben Berkwam, who's been there all day. Ben, did you get a chance to see the president? We saw him go in. It looked like they were going all the way to the building. And anything from the president at all?
No, from what we could see here, he just went straight in. We don't have a good vantage point of the front of the jail. You don't really have a good one on any of the entrances. We do have shots of the snipers up on the roof, and you can see that large motorcade. You know, that's one of the larger ones I've seen since he's not been in the presidency. So big police presence, big law enforcement presence. But as you said, you know, the left isn't going to be happy until he's in prison or dead. And that's, you know, the sad reality of this. We're watching this, the demise of America. And it really comes down to this generation. That's the concern so many Americans have. The people I interviewed, they believe it's going to make President Trump stronger, but they're concerned what it does for America in the long run.
Ben, let me play a soundbite for you, because I've seen some great ones over the course of the day from out there, including some that you had gathered for us as well. This one we got off of Instagram. We had to blur out his shirt just in the essence of good taste, but listen to this, gentleman.
I'm here to support President Trump. You want to know why I'm here to support President Trump? Because they done did black men like this for decades. Make up charges and put them, so I know Trump is innocent. I support Trump against this corrupt, two-tier justice system.
What do you think about the indictments?
Oh, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's going around the country. You know, Fannie Willis, she went to school with my sister. She full of it was full of shit. So she's a puppet for the white liberal that is controlling everything.
You know, there's something else he said, Ben, that was very interesting. He said black men had been experiencing these kinds of fake arrests and false arrests over decades. Right. And that's whether that's true or not, it certainly is how many in the black community feel. And I think this is endearing, especially many black men, to President Trump. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a friend of mine, and he absolutely. You're absolutely right. That is the sentiment that there's been so much injustice by this corrupt injustice system, the two tiers of justice that we see going on in our country. Now, as you mentioned, sometimes maybe that's legitimate, sometimes it's not, but there's definitely a sentiment, and we're seeing that in particular places like Atlanta, where people are saying, you know what, they're treating him just like they treat us, and it is. There's no question about it. It's having an impact where people are saying, maybe we like this guy even more than we did before.
Yeah. Ben Berkwam, as always, great work from out there, whether you're on the border, whether you're tracking down President Trump being arrested, whether you're overseas. You're always doing a great job, and we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you, sir. Always my.
All right. Absolutely, buddy. Folks, it is not a sad day. It is a battle cry day. It is a day that we rally around President Trump. Campaign officially started last night with those debates, right? That's what I say. Now we move straight to 2024 and the White House in January of 2025. All right, folks, do you get the feeling that something bad is going to happen soon, like President Trump being arrested or them going after all of us? Or no, more than that. I do get the feeling that bad things are happening between the distractions that we're seeing, the smoke screens in the media. We may not see it coming, though, if something bad is about to happen. That's why it's smart to invest in emergency food right away. As they say, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's for emergency food and ammunition, by the way. My Patriot Supply is the nation's leader in high-quality emergency food. Head to the website preparewithrav.com and you'll save $200 on your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Enjoy a wide variety of delicious meals offering over 2,000 calories every day for optimum strength under stress. Stock up before panic sets in. Free shipping is automatic and your order ships fast. So here's what you do. Go to preparewithrav.com. That's preparewithrav.com. All right, coming up, Al Sharpton shows he knows nothing about American history.
are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. In the campaign season's first GOP presidential debate, the knives were out for cocky newcomer Vivek Ramaswamy, who sparred with his rivals on everything from his lack of experience to domestic and foreign policy. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump skipped the debate, but stole much of the GOP's thunder by giving an interview to Tucker Carlson. That interview already has garnered more than 100 million views. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the Russian mercenary leader who led a purported mutiny against the Putin regime, was killed yesterday in a plane crash near Moscow. And Donald Trump found a new reason to criticize President Biden, saying that Biden's skinny legs look terrible on the beach. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
Folks, you're looking at live pictures just outside Fulton County Jail. If you see those sirens way in the back there, or at least the flashing lights, you don't hear the sirens, but the flashing lights, thank you, crew. That is President Trump's motorcade leaving. That was about as quick as a booking I've ever seen. Now, we were told that there was not going to be any kind of a hearing today. He was not going to enter a plea. That will be done at a later date. But he did get booked in. I assume he gave his fingerprints. I assume a mugshot was taken. And as I told you before, that mugshot is going to be spread all across the world as a symbol of a man who is willing to stand up to political persecution and tyranny. And he has been strong as an ox, President Trump, through all of this. I'm amazed it was that quick. Let me play a quick soundbite for you. This is Al Sharpton, just to show you what ding-dongs these people are on the left. Devious, deceitful, dopey ding-dongs.
But on the other side of it, one day our children's children will read American history. And can you imagine our reading that James Madison or Thomas Jefferson tried to overthrow the government so they can stay in power? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at American history, and how it will play out is going to be very important.
These people are so dumb. James Madison, I mean, our founding fathers, what do you think they were doing? They were standing up against the tyrannical overreach of Great Britain, of England, of the Crown, the most powerful military on earth at the time, and a ragtag army with muskets and the spirit of God in their souls. They're the ones who beat back the British. Al Sharpton doesn't understand that. Al Sharpton doesn't know that's exactly what our founding fathers did, that they stood up to the tyranny of overreach and oppression. It's exactly what President Trump is doing. He is our rebirth of a founding father, quite frankly. I'm happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with him and all of you. We call ourselves Stinchfield's Army for a reason, because we roll in the name of America, and we will not let this country go to radicals. Not a chance, not on our watch. Just try to take it. As we say in Texas, come and take it. Stinchfield's Army rolls. See you here tomorrow night.
All right, live from Studio 6B on a Thursday night, Real America's Voice, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. David Zier sitting in with us tonight's going to have some news. Rick Delgado with news as well. No Slick Rick tonight. Tomorrow he's off.